Forget the Wolverine V3 Pro, this is the ultimate controller, hands down. This has more customizability and features than you even thought could exist, including, but not limited to, a damn display built right in. This thing is the complete package, so let me explain just why I'm so excited by this thing. Starting with what's in the box. Everything is nicely housed in the fairly large hard carry case, and I do mean everything. The 3 metre nicely braided USB-C cable, the box of accessories, the dongle, the controller, and even the controller's charging stand, literally everything fits in here. That does mean that it's pretty big and a little, well, cumbersome to travel with, especially compared to the Wolverine V3's much sleeker case. Accessories-wise, you get 2 different sets of thumbstick tips, a taller puck and a convex dome rather than the concave tips that come on the sticks themselves, along with 2 different sets of weights and an extra D-pad, all of which I'll come back to in a second. The stand is also a nice bit of design, with it not only acting as a charging stand by just placing the controller down onto it, but also has a well-positioned USB-A port and slot to pop the dongle into, meaning it's charging and doing connectivity, and it's all handled by a single cable, which is also easily accessible should you want to run the controller in wired mode instead. The base also has a massive rubber pad on the bottom, making it remarkably solid on your desk. When it comes to those weights, one set, the mini dumbbells, are there to clip into the back of the grips under the textured rubber covers. You have 3 options here, 10 grams, 14 grams, and 16 grams. Although, personally, I'm not entirely sure why you'd want to add weight to your controller. Perhaps if you want to use the gyro function, you might want to make it a bit sort of heftier and a bit better balanced, but that's kind of the magic of this controller. It has so much customizability and so many features, the odds are most people who buy one of these won't end up using every single feature, but some of them will, and that's pretty cool. The other set of weights are actually for the joysticks, as crazy as that sounds. These are, of course, Hall effect joysticks, which actually lends itself to a bunch of cool features we'll be getting into here. First of which is that there's no damage done by adding weights to the stems, which alters the feel of the stick quite dramatically. It does limit how much travel they have depending on the thickness of the weight that you put on, but that's also taken into account with the software, so it isn't a huge problem. Adding the weights does actually change the feel of the sticks quite dramatically, and is something that I really would have liked to have had available on the Wolverine V3 Pro, as that's something that I noted in the review of it. The sticks feel just a little too light and springy. These ones do feel a touch better even without the weights, but when you add them in, it feels perfect, at least to me anyway. Continuing our tour around brings us to the D-pad, which is a very nice clicky affair with a swappable faceplate too. The default faceplate is a sort of flat plate. It works pretty well for me, but if you do prefer a more traditional cross, you can just pull this one off and click that one on, no problem. The ABXY buttons are also nice and clicky, with the right balance of travel and kinesthetic feedback. Have a listen. And have a listen to the D-pad too. As for the triggers, those are a bit weirdly angled for me, but they do have, all this sort of usual travel and a travel limiting switch with a little sort of slider on the back that slides a micro switch up into the housing, so you get a nice click out of that too, and out of the much shorter travel for FPS games. The lock is also nicely locks itself in place, nice and easy to use, so that's all good. Naturally, you've also got a bunch of extra buttons here. 6 hotkey buttons actually, 2 sets on each of the grips, one that sits really nicely under your middle finger, and one more recessed button for your sort of ring and pinky fingers, plus 2 up at the top near the shoulder buttons for those more claw grip players. You've also got 3 slide switches, or 2 and a button on the back. The middle one is the essentially power switch, letting you swap between connecting via the 2.4 GHz dongle, Bluetooth or wired. The switch to the right is for to pick between classic and advanced modes, which we'll come back to soon. And the button on the other side is to toggle through the profiles. You've also got a headset jack on the bottom along with a mic mute button, and up top you have the USB-C port, which is nicely recessed, quite tightly recessed, but does fit around the cable very nicely, as well as a lock switch and a multi-function button that's mostly used to activate the settings menu on the display. And seeing as we've just mentioned it, and it's kind of the defining feature of this controller, let's talk about the display. On the face of it, you might think that this is just a gimmick, a flashy bit of tat that you're not actually going to get any use out of, but honestly, I found it genuinely useful. Although that's mostly because this is a really bloody complicated controller with a whole bunch of features that just really can't be controlled without a screen. By default anyway, what you see is an Xbox or PC mode icon, classic or advanced mode, profile number, connection mode, mic status, and battery status. You can change between Xbox and PC modes by holding down that multifunction button at the top for 3 seconds, and then the controller reconnects. Just tapping the button opens the menu where you can use the D-pad and A and B to navigate it, where at least in the classic mode, you get 4 top-level options: audio, joysticks, mapping, and settings. One thing to understand here is that depending on what modes and profiles you're using, depends on what options are available to you. Nacon's manual for this controller has 2 full pages of tables detailing what options are available under what conditions. As an example, in Xbox mode, you can't enable the gyroscope, but in PC mode, that option suddenly appears in the joystick settings. That sort of thing takes a while to wrap your head around, but you do work it out eventually. And speaking of the joystick settings, my god, there's a lot here. At least in PC mode, like I said, you can map the built-in gyroscope to either joystick or the D-pad. You can adjust the response curve to 5 different options for the left stick. You can alter the dead zone and enable Shooter Pro mode in Sensitivity Plus and reverse the Y-axis. The right stick also has slightly different response curve options, and you can even invert the whole sticks too. In the mapping settings, you can remap all 6 of those shortcut buttons on the controller, and in the settings page, you can enable or disable vibration for each stick and side. The audio settings are even more incredible. See, this can not only act as a Bluetooth controller, but also a Bluetooth headset. And this has a sort of SteelSeries-like game chat mix mode, so you can connect your phone or laptop to this as a Bluetooth audio device, connect your headset to the controller, and then get both game audio and chat all through your one headset from multiple devices, and you can even control the mix of those two right on the controller. That's absolutely amazing. But that's not even everything. See, if you connect this in wired mode, in advanced mode, and Xbox mode, yes, there's a lot of steps, and download the correct Revolution X Unlimited app, not the one that their own website takes you to, you get even more customization. You can tweak the exact mapping of the joysticks, what every single button on the controller does, limit the trigger range and sensitivity, the vibration amount, even customize the RGB ring around the right joystick. It is frankly insane how much you can tweak this thing. You can store up to 20 different profiles on this thing, 12 for classic and another 8 for advanced mode. It's just frankly insane, but that's kind of what makes this great. You don't need to compromise for basically any game or system, because you can cycle through your options that are all nicely laid out on the display so that you know that for, I don't know, let's say Dirt Rally 2.0, you want Classic Mode on Profile 3 on PC. But for Siege, you want Advanced Mode Profile 1. It's all nice and clear, easy to use, easy to work out, and that's just great. Amazingly, we managed to get this far into a controller review and we haven't actually talked about how it feels to use, so let's do that. Physically, this does feel a little bulkier than Razer's options. There's a sleek elegance to the Wolverine lineup that this RXU doesn't quite capture. The grips, especially in this sort of mid-section at the back, it's just a little thicker and bulkier, and combined with Razer opting for slightly nicer feeling plastics and rubbers, I would say that Razer has the win for the more premium feel, albeit this is quite a close race. The RXU does fit in the hands pretty well, although I said I would come back to the triggers, and I guess it feels like they're just too slightly canted over. You end up pushing them diagonally down sort of towards the center of the controller rather than straight down towards the grips, which it just feels a little bit off to me. It's not a deal breaker or anything, but definitely feels a little weird. The joysticks though, especially with at least that mid-weight on there, feels excellent. It's just the right balance of sort of feel and spring. I really like how these feel. As I mentioned, the ABXY buttons feel great, nice and clicky, and the bumpers feel good enough. Not quite as clicky as the V2 Chroma's bumpers, but nice enough for sure. As for gaming on it, well, that's just excellent. For racing games, as an example anyway, it's perfect. The granular control of the joysticks means that you can tailor it to your driving style with maybe more fine-grained control in the center, but a wider swing on the outside. And I, of course, did have at least a little bit of a play with it in gyro mode, which, well, technically it works fine, but my god, it takes some getting used to. I think I'm going to be sticking with using the joystick for the time being. Yeah, for sure. For FPS games, I'm not the right person to be judging this, but I can say again that being able to tweak the joystick settings, especially on the fly, was amazing to get it dialed into my tastes, as wrong as they are, I'm sure. The fact that you don't need the software for a lot of this like setup and tweaking is amazing too, although I'm yet to mention the polling rates. This actually offers 3 different polling rate options, which of course I tested with my open source latency testing tool, available at osrtt.com, linked in the description. It offers 1000 Hz in PC mode, wired only, 500 Hz PC mode via the dongle, and 250 Hz Xbox mode wired or wireless. I'm happy to say that the 1000 Hz mode does work as expected, cutting 3 milliseconds of latency off of the wireless results, although there's actually very little difference between the 250 and 500 Hz modes, at least on average anyway. This is also the fastest controller I've tested at 11.3 milliseconds on average, down from the next best, which is the Wolverine V3 Pro in its 1000 Hz wired mode at 14.1 milliseconds. The same as the wireless results for this RXU. So yeah, on the whole anyway, this is one incredibly impressive controller. This has basically all of the bells and whistles you could imagine, and the real surprise for me is that this is £20 less than the V3 Pro. It's still an incredibly premium controller at £180, but to be actively cheaper than the V3 Pro while offering an order of magnitude more features and customization is pretty incredible. While for me the V3 Pro and even the V2 Chroma feel a little more premium in the hand, I can't deny how impressive this thing is. And if it were my money, I think I'd be putting it here. The convenience of the charging stand, just being able to drop it on it and start charging, all the sort of super easy and quick on-the-fly customization thanks to the display, and the wealth of options make it easy to justify over a, frankly, well, kind of minor improvement in hand feel from the V3. Of course, those are my thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. What do you think of this RxU? Would you opt for this over the V3 Pro, or maybe one of the cheaper options like the PXN or Nixie controllers that I've reviewed recently, videos in the cards above, or on the end cards when they pop up in a second? Feel free to let me know in the comments down below. If you do want to check this out, I will leave a link to it in the description. You can also check out plenty more videos by hitting the subscribe button and checking them out on the end cards, including the reviews of the other controllers I've done recently. And otherwise, that's kind of it. If you want to be able to test peripherals like this yourself, I make and build and sell and ship the open source latency testing tool right here at home, ship them worldwide. So feel free to pick one up at osrtt.com, linked in the description. And otherwise, yeah, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you all in the next video.